Have you ever looked at the world and wondered how all the different kinds of laws fit together? We have traffic laws, religious laws, and then those unwritten moral rules we all seem to follow. Where do they all come from, and do they connect to something bigger, something higher? It's a question that has fascinated thinkers for centuries, and today we're going to explore how philosophy and theology provide the bedrock for our entire concept of justice and morality. We'll dive into the brilliant mind of St. Thomas Aquinas and his hierarchy of laws, and then we'll travel back to ancient Greece to see how Aristotle's idea of balance is key to living a good life. By the end of this video, you'll see how these ancient ideas are not just dusty old concepts, but powerful tools that help us understand the very nature of right and wrong, and what makes a law truly just. So, let's get into it. To understand the foundations of law, there's no better guide than the 13th century philosopher and theologian, St. Thomas Aquinas. He didn't see law as a random collection of rules, but as an elegant, interconnected system flowing from a single, perfect source. He called this system the hierarchy of laws, and it has 4 distinct levels. At the very top, we have the eternal law. Imagine this as God's master plan or the divine blueprint for the entire universe. It's the perfect, unchanging wisdom that governs everything, from the orbit of the planets to the instincts of animals. It is, by its very nature, beyond our complete understanding, but it's the ultimate source of all order and reality. Everything in creation participates in the eternal law simply by existing and following its nature. Now, how do we, as humans, tap into this grand cosmic order? That brings us to the second level, natural law. Aquinas believed that God gave us reason, a powerful tool that allows us to understand a part of the eternal law. Natural law is our rational participation in God's plan. It's not written in a book, it's inscribed on our hearts. The most fundamental principle of the natural law is simple yet profound. Do good and avoid evil. It's the innate sense that tells us that preserving life is good, that seeking truth is good, and that living in a peaceful society is good. It's the moral compass we all share, but sometimes our reason can be clouded, or we might need more specific guidance. That's where the third level comes in, divine law. This is the law revealed directly by God through Scripture, like the 10 Commandments in the Bible or the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels. Divine law doesn't contradict natural law. It clarifies and elevates it, guiding us not just toward a good life on earth, but toward our ultimate spiritual destiny. It points us toward a higher purpose that reason alone might not fully grasp. Finally, at the base of this hierarchy, we have human law. These are the everyday laws created by our societies, traffic laws, criminal codes, civil statutes. According to Aquinas, for a human law to be a true law, it must be rooted in and reflect the natural law. It must be designed for the common good of the community. Here's a powerful example. A law permitting slavery might be legally enforced, but according to Aquinas, it would violate the natural law principle of preserving human dignity and life. Therefore, it would be an unjust law, a perversion of law, and would have no moral force. True law must always point toward what is good. So, Aquinas gives us this beautiful structure, but what is the actual content of that moral law we're supposed to follow? This is where we find the moral precepts, which are rooted in the natural law. At their core, these precepts are summarized by 2 great commandments: to love God with all your being and to love your neighbor as yourself. From these flow what we call the primary moral precepts. These are the fundamental, non-negotiable goods that our reason tells us to pursue. First, to preserve life and health. This is why we have a natural instinct for self-preservation, and why we see protecting others as a moral duty. Second, to reproduce and educate offspring. This reflects the natural drive to continue the human species and the responsibility to nurture and teach the next generation. Third, to seek the truth, especially knowledge of God. This speaks to our innate curiosity, our desire to learn, to understand the world, and to ponder the big questions of existence. And fourth, to live peacefully in society. We are social creatures, and our nature inclines us to build communities, create friendships, and establish just order. These precepts are not just abstract ideas, they are the foundation for things we value deeply today, like human rights, universal education, freedom of speech, and the pursuit of justice. From these primary precepts, we derive secondary precepts, which are more specific applications. For example, the primary precept to preserve life leads directly to the secondary precept, do not kill. The precept to live peacefully in society leads to rules like do not steal. Civil and religious laws are meant to be specific applications of these moral principles, and crucially, they must never contradict them. A law that undermines life, family, truth, or society is, by its nature, a defective law. Now that we understand the what of the law, let's talk about the how. How do we live this out? It's not enough to just know the rules. We have to become the kind of person who wants to do good. For this, we turn to the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle and his brilliant doctrine of the mean. Aristotle argued that living a good moral life isn't about following a rigid checklist. It's about developing a virtuous character. And what is virtue? For Aristotle, virtue is the golden mean, the perfect balance point between two extremes or vices, one of excess and one of deficiency. Virtue isn't something you do once. It's a stable habit, a disposition you cultivate through practice, guided by reason. Let's take the virtue of courage. On one extreme, you have cowardice, which is a deficiency of bravery. On the other extreme, you have recklessness, which is an excess of it. The truly courageous person isn't the one who feels no fear, nor the one who foolishly rushes into any danger. The courageous person is the one who assesses the situation with reason, feels the appropriate amount of fear, and acts rightly despite it. Consider another example. Generosity. The person who never gives anything away is stingy. That's the deficiency. But the person who gives away so much that they can provide for their own family is wasteful, that sees the excess. The generous person finds the mean, giving the right amount to the right people at the right time. This applies to so many areas of our lives. Temperance is the mean between self-indulgence and being completely insensible to pleasure. A balanced life isn't about starving yourself, nor is it about overeating at every meal. It's about enjoying things in moderation, guided by reason. Aristotle's wisdom teaches us that the moral life is a life of balance. It's about training our desires and emotions to align with what our reason tells us is good. It's about becoming a person whose character is so well formed that doing the right thing feels natural. So, let's bring it all together. From Aquinas, we get a grand vision of law flowing from God, His eternal wisdom, down through our rational nature and into the specific rules that govern our societies. The natural law gives us the universal moral principles: to preserve life, seek truth, and live in peace. Then, from Aristotle, we learn how to embody these principles in our daily lives. By cultivating virtues and finding the golden mean between extremes, using our reason as our guide. The big takeaway is this: law and morality are not just about blind obedience to rules. They are fundamentally about aiming for what is good, true, and beautiful. True law serves human flourishing and points us toward our best selves. It's a framework for building a just society and for living a meaningful life. This leaves us with a profound and timeless question. If true law must always serve what is good, how can we ensure that the laws we follow and create today are truly just, moral, and humane? It's a challenge that invites us to think deeply about the foundations of our own beliefs and the shape of our world. Thank you so much for joining me on this philosophical journey today. If you found this exploration of law and morality insightful, Please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content that dives deep into the big questions of life. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep thinking.